Good morning, and thanks for tuning in to today's episode of our daily crypto news podcast. We've got a packed show for you with several major market moving stories to dive into. I'm joined as always by my co-host, and we're going to start with the biggest news of the day: Bitcoin's price slipping below $100,000.
That's right. It's been a wild ride for Bitcoin in recent weeks, but this latest drop is particularly significant. We've seen the price hovering around $100,000 for a while now, and a break below that level could have major implications for the rest of the market.
So what's driving this drop? Well, it looks like the renewed trade war between the US and Canada is a major factor. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has announced retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods following the Trump administration's tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel.
That's right, and it's not just Canada. Mexico has also joined in, slapping tariffs on U.S. goods. This is a major escalation of the trade war, and it's likely to have a significant impact on the global economy.
And how does this relate to Bitcoin? Well, the weakness in Bitcoin's price is likely reflecting fears about inflation, with the global economy facing a renewed trade war, as well as the mass deportations of illegal migrants. There's a real risk that inflation could start to rise. And when inflation rises, investors tend to get nervous and seek out safe haven assets.
Exactly, and Bitcoin, as the leading cryptocurrency, is often seen as a bellwether for the rest of the market. So when Bitcoin's price drops, it can have a ripple effect on other cryptocurrencies.
Now, we should note that Bitcoin's price has been under pressure for a while now, but this latest drop is particularly significant. We're seeing risk-off cues in traditional markets, which could indicate a major shift in investor sentiment.
And that's not all. We're also seeing a broader trend of investors seeking out safe haven assets, such as gold and bonds. This could be a sign that investors are getting nervous about the state of the global economy.
We'll be exploring this theme in more detail throughout the episode, but for now, let's take a closer look at the details of Canada's retaliatory tariffs and how they might impact the global economy.
And we'll also be examining the potential impact on Bitcoin and the broader cryptocurrency market. Will this latest drop be a buying opportunity, or is it a sign of more pain to come? We'll be discussing all this and more in the next segment.
Building on what we discussed earlier about the increasing influence of crypto in politics, there's some big news out of the US. You might recall Fairshake, the pro-crypto super PAC that made headlines last November for its massive spending in the US elections.
That's right. They were a major force in shaping American digital assets policy, and now it seems they're gearing up for an even bigger push in the 2026 midterms.
According to recent reports, Fairshake has already raised over $116 million to spend on the upcoming elections. That's a staggering amount, especially considering the impact they had with their $300 million blitz in 2024.
What's not surprising is who's backing them. We see the usual suspects such as Andreessen Horowitz, Coinbase, and Ripple, who were all major donors to Fairshake's previous efforts.
But what's interesting is that there are some other notable crypto firms getting in on the action. It's clear that the industry sees the importance of having a strong lobbying presence in Washington.
Absolutely, and it's not just about pushing for more favorable regulations. This is about shaping the future of crypto in the US and ensuring that the industry has a seat at the table when it comes to policy discussions.
Speaking of policy, it's worth noting that Fairshake's efforts have already had a significant impact. We've seen a shift in the way lawmakers approach crypto, with more of a focus on fostering innovation rather than simply imposing strict regulations.
That's true, but it's also worth remembering that not everyone is happy about the influence of crypto money in politics. There are still plenty of critics who argue that this kind of spending undermines the democratic process.
It's a valid concern, and one that we'll likely see debated more and more as we head into the 2026 elections. But for now, it's clear that Fairshake is gearing up for a major push, and we can expect to see even more money flowing into the crypto lobbying space in the months to come.
And that's not all. We're also seeing a growing trend of crypto companies getting involved in state-level politics. It's not just about federal regulations. These companies are looking to shape policy at all levels of government.
That's a great point. We'll have to keep an eye on how this plays out in the coming months. It's going to be a wild ride, that's for sure.
Definitely. We'll be following this story closely and bringing you updates as more information becomes available. In the meantime, let's move on to our next story.
We've been discussing the recent downturn in the crypto market, and it's clear that many coins are feeling the heat. But amidst all the red, there's a surprising story emerging. A meme coin is being credited with saving Solana, which is down 6.21% today.
That's right, the meme coin Bonk has been making waves in the Solana ecosystem. Its popularity has led to a surge in transactions on the Solana network, which has helped to keep it afloat despite the broader market downturn.
Building on what we discussed earlier about the importance of community engagement, it's clear that Bonk has tapped into something special. The coin's irreverent branding and playful vibe have resonated with users who are driving its adoption.
And it's not just about the branding. Bonk's developers have been actively engaging with the community, soliciting feedback and incorporating user suggestions into the coin's development roadmap. That kind of responsiveness and transparency can go a long way in building trust and loyalty.
Speaking of loyalty, it's worth noting that Solana's native token, SOL, has been experiencing significant price volatility in recent weeks. The coin's value has dropped by over 20% in the past month alone.
That's true, but the entry of Bonk into the Solana ecosystem has helped to stabilize the network's activity levels. In fact, Solana's transaction volume has remained relatively consistent despite the drop in Solana's price.
So what does this say about the state of the crypto market? Is the rise of meme coins like Bonk a sign of a broader shift towards more community-driven projects?
I think it's definitely a trend worth watching. As we've discussed before, the crypto space is all about innovation and experimentation. And if meme coins like Bonk can bring new users and energy into the space, then that's a positive development.
And it's not just about the users. The fact that Bonk is built on Solana's network means that it's also driving adoption of the underlying technology. That's a win-win for everyone involved.
Absolutely. As we continue to navigate this bear market, it's clear that the projects that will thrive are those with strong communities and a clear vision for the future. And right now, Bonk is definitely one to watch.
We'll be keeping a close eye on Bonk and the broader Solana ecosystem in the coming weeks. For now, let's take a look at some of the other movers and shakers in the market. We've got a few notable price drops to discuss, including a 7.67% decline in Polkadot's DOT token.
Yes, and Litecoin is also down 5.65% today. It's clear that the bear market is still very much in effect. But as we've seen with Bonk, there are always opportunities for growth and innovation, even in the toughest of times.
As we were discussing earlier, the DeepSeek controversy has sent shockwaves through the markets, and it's no surprise that we're seeing a sea of red across the board. Bitcoin's down 2%, Ethereum's down 4.55%, and some of the other majors like Solana and Avalanche are down by as much as 6% and 8% respectively.
That's right, and I think what's really spooking investors is the uncertainty around how this whole situation is going to play out. I mean, we've seen some major players get caught up in the DeepSeek drama, and it's anyone's guess who's going to be next.
Absolutely, and that uncertainty is only going to add to the volatility we're seeing in the markets. Speaking of which, we've got a big decision coming up from the Fed this week, which could potentially add some more fuel to the fire.
Yeah, the Fed's decision on interest rates is always a big deal for crypto markets, and this time around is no exception. If they decide to hike rates, it could put even more pressure on the majors, which are already looking a bit shaky.
That's right, and it's not just the majors that are feeling the heat. Some of the smaller coins like Dogecoin and Shiba Inu are down by as much as 6% and 6.5% respectively. It's a tough time to be a crypto investor, that's for sure.
But as we always say, every cloud has a silver lining, and in this case, that silver lining might just be the launch of Abstract, which is happening today. We've been hearing a lot of buzz about this project, and it'll be interesting to see how it performs in the current market conditions.
Absolutely, and I think Abstract's launch could be a bit of a litmus test for the market as a whole. If it does well, it could be a sign that investors are still willing to take risks and invest in new projects, even in uncertain times.
Yeah, and if it doesn't do well, it could be a sign that investors are getting a bit more cautious, which could have implications for the wider market. Either way, it's going to be an interesting few days ahead.
Definitely, and we'll be keeping a close eye on the situation as it develops. In the meantime, let's take a closer look at some of the other coins that are making moves today. We've got Leo up 0.04%, which is a rare bit of good news in an otherwise gloomy market.
Yeah, and BGB is only down 2.3%, which is a pretty impressive performance considering the circumstances. It'll be interesting to see if these coins can continue to buck the trend in the days ahead.
Absolutely, and we'll be keeping a close eye on them as we move forward. But for now, that's all for this segment. Stay tuned for more updates and analysis as the day goes on.
As we wrap up today's episode, I want to revisit some of the key themes we touched on earlier. We saw a pretty significant downturn in the market, with Bitcoin dropping 2% and Ethereum taking a 4.55% hit.
Yeah, and it's not just the big players that are feeling the pinch. We saw some of the smaller coins like Doge and SHIB taking a 6% loss, and even some of the newer entrants like Hype taking a whopping 11.2% hit.
That's right, and I think it's worth noting that this downturn is coming at a time when the global economy is facing a lot of uncertainty. We've got the ongoing situation with the US government and the potential for more regulatory changes on the horizon.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the key takeaways from today's episode. The crypto market is still highly susceptible to external factors, and we need to be prepared for more volatility in the coming weeks and months.
That being said, I do think there are some positive signs on the horizon. We're seeing more and more adoption of blockchain technology, and some of the newer use cases like AI and abstract thinking are really starting to gain traction.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the most exciting things about the crypto space right now. We're seeing a lot of innovation and experimentation, and it's going to be interesting to see how these new technologies play out in the coming years.
Definitely. And speaking of innovation, I want to touch on something we mentioned earlier, the rise of decentralized finance, or DeFi. We're seeing more and more players entering this space, and it's going to be interesting to see how it evolves in the coming months.
Yeah, and I think DeFi is one of the areas where we're going to see the most growth and innovation in the coming years. It's still a relatively new space, but it's already showing a lot of promise.
Absolutely. And finally, I want to leave our listeners with a few key takeaways from today's episode. Firstly, the crypto market is still highly volatile, and we need to be prepared for more price swings in the coming weeks and months.
Secondly, we're seeing a lot of innovation and experimentation in the crypto space, particularly in areas like DeFi and AI. And finally, it's more important than ever to stay informed and up to date on the latest developments in the crypto market.
That's right. And as always, we want to thank our listeners for tuning into today's episode. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, please don't hesitate to reach out.
And don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on all the latest crypto news and developments. Until next time, thanks for listening.
Bye for now.